Yeah, please. Okay, hello everybody. So I'm going to be talking to you about university admissions tests. Throughout the session, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. Aled here will be here to translate if you want to ask a question in Welsh. I'm afraid my Welsh is far too rusty to be doing that. But as way of introduction, so as you can see, my name is David Harrison. I was actually born and brought up in North Wales, in Anglesey, and then went to left there to go to university, and I'm now sort of coming back to Wales to talk about university and how to get into there. So what I hope to do is to give you the answers to these 4 questions. So actually just take you through who it is that uses admissions tests, why they're using admissions tests, what the tests are actually going to look like, and some tips on how you can prepare for admissions tests. So, first of all, does anybody have any ideas about who actually uses admissions tests? Helen? Oxford, yeah. Cambridge. Anything else? Any other sort of suggestions for who might be using them? So, important point is not every university uses admissions tests, but particularly with England dropping AS levels, I'm kind of predicting, and maybe it's just because I want some job security, that more and more universities will start using admissions tests. Also, more and more universities, they're drawing on international students with a mix of different qualifications. So again, there's more of an incentive for them to actually use admissions tests. Even within a particular university, not every course or subject actually uses admissions tests, but particularly the very popular ones will be using admissions tests because they're having to select from, maybe sort of 15, even sort of 20 students applying for each place that there is on the course. So admissions tests get quite important. Medicine and law both have a long tradition of using admissions tests. So almost every single medicine course and law course in the UK does actually make use of some sort of admissions test. So I'll be talking a little bit about them in particular. But as we said, Cambridge and Oxford definitely make quite a lot of use of admissions tests, and it's because they're having to select from the very, very best. Okay, you're all applying, you've all done really well in your GCSEs, you're going to be doing really well in your A-levels. They're actually trying to select from the very best who on paper may look quite the same. So you might be thinking, well, actually I have done well at my GCSEs, I'm going to be doing really well at my A-levels, why are they making me take an admissions test as well? So as you can see, it helps to identify the right people for the course. Okay, sometimes people might be thinking, yeah, I really want to be a doctor, but they just don't have the right aptitude. They don't have the talents to actually sort of get them very far. University loses out if somebody drops out of a course after a few weeks. That person is going to lose out. The person who could have taken their place is going to lose out. So it becomes very important. As I said already, popular courses, popular subjects they've got a lot of people applying for them, so they need to be able to select between them. And also, particularly with internationalisation, you've got candidates from, say, Scotland with Highers, England and Wales with A-levels, from overseas, from Australia, from America, China, Malaysia, wherever, all sorts of different qualifications. So for the university, they need to be able to select between them, and it actually gives them a piece of common information to all of the applicants. If every one of you who are applying for medicine, say, has done the particular admissions test, then they've got that measure that's common to all of them, and they can use it to compare and to rank people. We'll highlight the fact that admissions tests are just one part of the overall application process. You will never have to apply for a course where the only thing they're looking at is an admissions test. Okay, so even if you do, sort of poorly on the admissions test, that's taken into consideration, the sort of context and so on. It is just one piece of information that the university is looking for. But again, there's the question of, well, why? Why have admissions tests? You've got A-levels, you've got GCSEs. There was a survey done a few years ago, it was almost 4 years ago now, talking to admissions officers, tutors and lecturers at university, and they tried to say what were the main skills that they find they want in a prospective university student and that they want to develop on a university course. So top 3, critical thinking, discipline or subject knowledge, and problem solving. Yes, A-levels and GCSEs will assess your subject knowledge, but for critical thinking and problem solving, there's not really sort of much that's actually done to assess that in schools. It's difficult to assess, and that's part of my job, is to find ways to actually assess those skills and your potential, your aptitude for engaging in critical thinking and problem solving, which are going to be really useful for you on a university course and later on in your career. There are quite a few tests that are used. So you can see there's the BMAT, which is a biomedical admissions test, STEP, which is one of our maths tests. There are others. Oxford use things like PAT, the physics aptitude test, MAT, the maths aptitude test. You've got ELAT, English literature admissions test. And as of last year, Cambridge brought in a range of pre-interview assessments. The majority of these tests you don't have to pay for. It's only on there. It's only BMAT, which you actually have to sort of pay a fee to sit. Most of them are sat in your school, so you can register for them through your school. Most of them are paper-based, it's not computer-based. You're sitting there in your school with a pencil and the question paper, and it's familiar surroundings, and it's all sort of run by your school, and then they send us the papers back to be sort of marked. For Cambridge, at the moment, there's this very long list of subjects which require a pre-interview admissions assessment. For some reason, Cambridge doesn't like the word test, so we always have to call them assessments rather than sort of tests with Cambridge. So as you can see, quite a range there. For many of them, they're all about assessing your aptitude, your potential for doing well on the course. There are other tests. I said about law, so with law there's the Cambridge Law Test, there's LNAT. Around mathematics, there's a number of tests. All 3 of those we at Cambridge Assessment actually administer. For medical courses, BMAT, UK CAT are the main ones. If you're applying for medicine as an undergraduate in a UK university, you will have to do either sort of BMAT or UK CAT. Or if you're applying for a number of universities, you will be sitting both of BMAT and UK CAT. There are also some courses, some subjects, which actually set their own admissions tests. So it's always worth having a look on their website and finding out if there's going to be an additional sort of test that they're asking you to sit. Those ones are usually sat at interview. So quite a lot of tests, and you might be wondering, well, exactly how do universities use these in order to make their selections? Okay, I can confirm it's not a random process. They don't just sort of throw darts at a dartboard or throw your applications down the stairs and whichever one reaches the bottom step gets in. It's also not a magical process. There's no magical sorting hat that gets put on your application and tells them, yes, they can go to Seren, yes, they can go to Cambridge to study law. Okay? It's a complicated process. And the universities in some way make it more complicated because exactly how they make their selections varies from test to test. It varies from university. The one constant factor is it's never the sole criterion. Okay, so whether or not you do well or poorly at an admissions test, that's not going to be the deciding factor. Everything else is taken into consideration. But the tests are used to rank applicants. And then the university decides how many people they're going to be interviewing, how many spaces they have available in the course. The main thing to know about admissions tests, and I cannot stress this strongly enough, is it assesses your ability, your talent, your aptitude. It does not care about your background. Okay? There is a strong myth that students who are going to independent schools, to private schools, are being tutored and coached in these admissions tests. Okay? We work very, very hard to make sure that the tests are assessing your potential. And so in some ways that might suggest, well, you just can't prepare for them because they're not actually sort of testing your subject knowledge, they're testing your potential, your natural abilities. That's not quite true in that you can prepare for them by familiarising yourself with things, getting to know the format of the test, the sorts of things that they're asking. But just to give you some idea of the complexity of how different universities use them, this is how Cambridge, Oxford and Imperial College London actually use the BMAT. So it's just one test for medical applications and quite a variety. Look there, there's also UCL, Leeds and Brighton and Sussex. So all 6 of those universities use BMAT for medical applications. They use them in very different ways. And they weight the different sections differently, they're looking for different things, they combine them with interviews, with other parts of your application. So yeah, it's quite complicated. You can get all of this information on the individual university websites with a little bit of searching, but just to give you an idea of how complicated a process the actual selection is. So you might be thinking, oh, what am I going to do? How can you're telling me I can't prepare for these tests. I don't even know how the universities are going to use them. Don't worry about it too much, okay? A little bit of sort of self-advertising from me. On our website, we do have all of the information about the tests, which courses use our tests. You've got preparation materials, past papers that you can download, guides to how to prepare for them, instructions about how to register for the test. It's all there on the website. And particularly, I want to stress that all of our material is there for free. Okay? You do not have to pay for the past papers, for the preparation guides, and we've done the work. We've talked to students who are about to take the test, who have just taken the test. We've talked to teachers, we've talked to university lecturers about what the best ways are to prepare for our tests. And that information is all there for you. Past papers are there. This is just the first page of a preparation guide that we've done for BMAT. So giving you lots of useful hints and tips about how to prepare, how to go about getting yourself ready for the tests. You will possibly sort of find out that there are preparation courses which are offered by other organisations, okay, and they will be charging you 100, 200, 300 odd pounds for a weekend course where essentially they're just repeating the information that's there on the website, or maybe somebody from that course has sneaked into one of these sessions and heard what I'm saying. I'm telling you this for free, okay? I'm not going to charge you £300 each, and you can also get all of the material and 14 years of past papers and so on sort of from our website. So it's all there. So now we come to the real meat of this session. What do the tests actually look like? So I'm actually going to show you a number of questions which have been taken from past papers, and I'm actually going to ask you to have a go at doing them. Okay? So the first question, it's going to be a multiple choice question. Most of our questions are multiple choice. If they're not sort of essay questions, we all know multiple choice questions are really easy. There's just one correct answer. You don't have access to calculators or dictionaries in the tests. You can normally sort of write on the question paper. And on average, given that there's about 50 questions normally, and you have 90 minutes, so that works out as roughly 2 minutes per question. So I'll give you 2 minutes to decide what the answer is to this question. If you need to stand up to see all of the questions, please do so. Okay, so this is actually a question taken from one of the, I think it was an Oxford Thinking Skills Assessment. So, you're told that the amount of time that people devote to travelling from A to B has been pretty constant over history. Even with faster and faster forms of transport, it just means people spend the same amount of time travelling, it's just they end up travelling greater distances. So which of those options parallels that reasoning? Who thinks the answer is A? Few people, some cautiousness there. Okay, B? One person, is that half a hand up? C? Nobody going for C. D? A few. Okay, E? So, is the reason E is more popular at the front because at the back you couldn't see E? So, correct answer is actually A. Okay? Average travelling time stays the same, even though you can go faster. Average earnings may be increasing, the amount that's actually loaned out. Okay? I'll give you another one. This question it's another critical thinking one. It comes from a BMAT paper. In BMAT we call them, instead of critical thinking, we call them understanding argument. So this one says that there is some reasoning error, there's some flaw in the logic of the argument that's put forward, and you have to identify which of those 4 statements makes the same reasoning error. Okay, I'm guessing everybody's got an answer. So, who thinks the answer's A? A couple of people, okay. Answer B? Again, a couple of people. C? Just one person. D? Quite a few people. I think you're getting the hang of it now. Yeah, so it is D. In the passage, it says forgery is copying, art is copying, so they're both copying, so they're both the same thing, so therefore they are the same thing, that forgery and art are the same thing. In sentence D, French are Europeans, Spaniards are Europeans, they're both Europeans, so they're both the same thing, but French are Spanish. Okay? Right. I'll now show you a problem-solving question. So, slightly more mathematically minded. Actually, all you have to do is to be able to add up. Remember, we don't allow you to use calculators in these tests. Right. So you need to be thinking about where the centre spread is for the question. Who thinks it's A? Pages 15 and 16. Nobody? Yeah. Who thinks it's B? 1, 2, 3, 4. C? Nobody? Sometimes the answer is C, but it's not in this case, but sometimes. D? One person. E? Yeah, sort of a few more. The answer is E. It's 96 and 97. If you think about it, like the first centre spread is going to be on pages 16 and 17, and then you can start sort of counting forwards from that. Next question I'm going to show you, it's another problem-solving one. It's not from a past paper. This next question I was actually given when I applied for this job and when I was interviewed. And it has a nasty reputation amongst the people in our office. There are so many people who just don't understand it and don't get how you get it. So, have we got any mathematicians in this group? Just to give you a hint, it's not a probability question, so don't go that route. Okay, simple mathematics, primary school mathematics. Question isn't asking you what's the probability of picking up. It's just asking you the number, the smallest number. Okay. Anybody think there are no screws which match the criterion of being cross-headed, 3mm in diameter and 50mm long? So I was tempted the first time I saw this question by A, but it's not the correct answer. Anybody think it's B? Few. Anybody think it's C? One or two. D? Again, a couple. And E? Okay. It's actually B. 10 screws which match that criteria. The best way to think about it is in terms of where they kind of overlap. When I'm explaining it, I normally sort of draw out kind of like a sort of number line. So you've got the sort of 60 from that end, the 80 from that end, where the overlap is, and then the next sort of criteria. So. So, well, you are told how many match each of the sort of conditions. But yeah, that's the thinking that I applied when I first encountered the question. And in the interview, I actually got into a bit of an argument with the person who then became my boss in terms of the wording of it, and that it maybe could be interpreted that way. But again, it's the sort of thing that our tests are looking for, is that ability to take what you're given and sort of work with it. And it doesn't require any complicated mathematics. For our problem-solving questions, you need, as long as you can add, subtract, multiply, divide, maybe remember how many seconds there are in a minute, how many months there are in the year, and your mate. Maybe you might have to know about percentages, but that's it. Go on to something a little bit more complicated. So in BMAT and some of our other tests, we'll sometimes give you some data and have a number of questions where you're having to interpret the data, do some analysis, and draw some inferences. So this is one of those. We'll focus on question 9. So it's asking you, given all of these facts, how many times did the average patient visit their family doctor? Now, remember, you don't have calculators in these tests. You can write on the paper, and pay attention to the fact that the question asks you approximately how many. Okay? Approximating and estimating is your friend for a lot of questions like this. Anybody got an answer yet? Something else to bear in mind with our test is there's no negative scoring. So often if you're running out of time or you just have no clue, it is always worth guessing, because a lucky guess gets the same amount of marks as a properly worked out guess. So, anybody think it was A? C? D? E? Okay, it actually works out as 3.8 something. So the correct answer is actually C. Okay. You've got things like the average. So you're told how many doctors there are. You're told how many patients they see in a week, and then it's over sort of 50 weeks. So it's really just sort of multiplying and division. We'll talk about it later if you want. Here we've got a biology question. Now, I'm not a biologist. My background is in philosophy, sort of thinking and logic, but I found this a fairly easy question. In particular, all I really needed to know is, what is a homeostatic system? Can anybody offer me a definition, an explanation? Yeah. Yeah, so temperature is a good one. So yeah, it's a homeostatic system is a system that actually sort of regulates the normal sort of functioning of a system, such as controlling your body temperature. So bearing that in mind, if we've got this graph here, what would change if somebody's homeostatic system, say that based on their temperature, was being less responsive? So if we take it, say it is sort of temperature, so somebody's temperature starts to rise, the homeostatic system is impaired in some way, it's being less responsive, so what's going to happen? Yeah, so this is going to get higher and higher before the homeostatic system steps in and starts to bring the temperature down. So 2 is going to be higher. So option D. Chemistry, any chemists here? I won't spend too long on this if we've got no chemists. You start thinking about it, catalysts don't actually sort of change things, they just change the rate of reaction. Nitrogen is a fairly inactive substance, it's not going to be in there. Pressure changes aren't going to be important for this sort of thing, they're just going to move the sort of point of equilibrium. So the actual answer is D. Decreasing the temperature is going to affect it. We've got a physics question here. Again, it's fairly simple. It doesn't ask you, it tells you all of the information that you need. The difference with these admissions tests is often it's asking you to apply what you know. So it's not asking you to repeat what you've been told in class at GCSE. It's actually asking you to apply what you know, the knowledge that you have, in order to solve a problem. So it's much more a sort of real-world context. Any quick guesses as to this one? So it's reached a speed of 20 meters per second. It's falling under the influence of gravity, so accelerating at 10 meters per second. So it's going to have fallen 20 meters in order to have achieved that acceleration. Got a maths question for you. Now you might think, it's a cube, 3-dimensional object, how am I going to solve that? 90% of maths questions can be solved by applying Pythagoras' theorem, even to 3-dimensional objects. You look at it here, that line is just, it's the hypotenuse. You've got, you know the lengths of the other sides. So the answer there is √3/2. If you want really hard mathematics, there's the step test that we do. I've talked to some of the markers that we use for STEP who are PhD students doing maths at Cambridge, and they still have nightmares and suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder having done the STEP. So it's one of our most demanding tests. Just to very quickly give you an idea of some of the others. So many of the Cambridge assessments will actually have essentially a reading comprehension task, where you're given maybe excerpts from an academic paper or a review of the paper, and you're actually asked a few questions just to test your understanding and your ability to follow an argument and to draw meaning and information out of text that you're reading. All useful skills for just about any course. Some of our tests will actually expect you to write essays, or very short essays. And a question like this, you know, there's no right or wrong answer. We're not looking for a specific response. What we're looking for is, can you actually communicate effectively, and can you construct a logical, well-reasoned argument and present that to somebody? So what we're interested in is not what your answer is to the question. You could say yes, no, whatever. What we're interested in is why that is your answer. So the trick with any of these sort of essay tasks is really to focus on saying, I think this because of these reasons, and so that everything is justified. Oxford also use thinking skills assessment, so it's got critical thinking and problem solving questions, like we've already looked at, and then also essay questions. And again, you know, can you know whether or not you are dreaming right now? Well, that's a question that philosophers have been arguing for thousands of years. It's a question that you might be asking every time you see The Matrix, something like that. There's not a right or wrong answer. It's explaining and communicating your thinking. We also have a range of other tests, so English literature, geography, Cambridge admissions test. Again, like the question that I showed you, you're presented with data and you're asked to sort of draw things. So you might be asking, how do I prepare for this? Okay, so I'll give you 4 key things to remember. First of all, don't panic about them. We are honestly not trying to trick you. None of the questions are trick questions. You'll have all of the information there in the question. We're not relying on any sort of knowledge that you might have about the thing. You don't have to be an expert on, sort of, sparrow migratory habits, to answer a critical thinking question. Secondly, you should know what the tests look like. Well, you're now one step up on that because you've actually seen proper examples of past questions. Third is to really enjoy your subject, because part of what the test is actually trying to assess is your ability to engage with the subject. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do that. So just make sure that you're pursuing a subject that you're really interested in. And that enthusiasm for it will get you reading wider about it, actually engaging with it, thinking about it, talking about it with others. It's all going to help you with the test. And the final thing is you do need to practice these tests in order to become familiar with them. Now, we've got years and years of past papers on there. I'm not saying do all of them, but in the run-up to sitting an admissions test, it's worthwhile sitting 1 or 2 of them under test conditions, because that time pressure is part of the test. But once you've done that, you should be able to sort of go forward and actually pursue it. So just to remind you again, if you go to our website, the admissions testing, you'll find plenty of material, past papers, preparation guides. It's all there. Please go there and use it so I can actually feel useful. Anybody have any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to be around, so thank you very much. So if you do want to ask me anything as you're going out, please do so.